those. A bit of those. This. Yeah, one of these. We'll need that. Bunch of this stuff. For sure. Maybe one of these. We'll see. Gotta have that. I'll find some more stuff. All right, welcome back to another episode of Tank Slap TV. This time we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Normally the whole point of the show is to bring in an old derelict bike, get it back going again and get it back out on the road or move it on to somebody and save it from disaster. I think this time we're going to do a little bit of both. So this over here is my 1984. This is a 700 Kawasaki. ZN700A. Now this thing has been sitting out back in my house for probably a good 3 years now, just gathering rust, and I never really had a lot of intent with it because it was partial trade. I got it along with some other stuff that I wanted, and it had been kind of chopped up and bobbed out, and the work in the back wasn't super great, so I really wasn't looking forward to doing anything. I had some issues with drainage in my backyard, and I had to move it out of the way to get in there with the skid steer. And while I was looking at it, I said, you know what? Maybe I could do something with this. I should save it. I have it. Let's turn this into something cool. Let's show you my plans here. First, I'll take you around the bike a little bit and show you what's going on. All right, so as you can see, pretty much stock front end. It does have dual disc front brakes. That's pretty awesome. Got the original tank that I love. I love how wide it is. We may use this, I'm not sure, but pretty rusty in there. I think we can clean that up. I don't think there's any holes in it yet. All the electronics are, the wiring is all hooked up. It's just all been unbolted and unstrapped from the bike. But it's there. And I've got rear disc brakes as well. Adjustable air shocks that you can see. They cut off the rear section of the frame, sliced this section right here, put a bolt on, and kind of made the shocks mount like that. However, this is pretty janky in there. I'm not super comfortable with ever letting it go on the street like that. So I've kind of been brainstorming how I want to do the rear suspension. Tires are definitely shot. They're all dry rotted. But it's mostly there for bike-wise. It has these kind of little mini apes on it, but I was kind of playing around when I first pulled it in the garage, just testing some other bars that I had. We'll see what that looks like later, but basically that's what that looks like. Quad carbs got the little cones on them. I'm betting when they put the pod filters on, it's not rejetted, so we'll kind of have to see how well that runs. And we're missing the speedo. The cable's hooked up, and then all the wiring for everything that goes up to the dash, the speedo, headlight, all that stuff's missing. But the wiring is all still there. So it shouldn't be hard to go through that, figure out what it is, and just kind of do some custom mod. All in all, not too bad. Dual front disc brakes. I like that. So let me show you what I think I'm going to do. But before we get too far into it, let's talk about something that maybe you didn't know. If you've ever looked at a stripped down motorcycle with low handlebars, a single seat, and an attitude that says, let's go for a ride, you've probably seen a Cafe Racer. But the story of these bikes started long before Instagram, YouTube, or custom motorcycle shows. Back in the late 1950s and early 1960s, young riders in Britain wanted motorcycles that were fast, lightweight, and looked like they belonged on a racetrack. They gathered at roadside cafes, with the most famous being the Ace Cafe in London. Riders would race from one cafe to another or try to complete the route before a song finished playing on the jukebox. These became known as the Ton-Up Boys, named after their goal of reaching the ton, or 100 miles per hour. To go faster, they stripped away anything that wasn't necessary. Heavy fenders, large seats, and bulky accessories were all removed. Clip-on handlebars, rear-set foot pegs, and small fuel tanks gave the bikes an aggressive riding position. The result wasn't just a motorcycle, it became a symbol of freedom, speed, and individuality. As the years passed, the cafe racer movement spread around the world, but by the late 1970s and the early 80s, something changed. Japanese manufacturers had taken over the motorcycle market, with machines that were faster, more reliable, and more affordable than many of their British competitors. Manufacturers like Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, and Suzuki introduced motorcycles that became legends. Bikes like the Honda CB750, the XJ and the FJ series from Yamaha, Kawasaki GPZ lineup, and Suzuki GS and GSX models were incredible performance straight from the factory. They were built to last, easy to work on, and produced in huge numbers. Fast forward a few decades, and those same motorcycles have become some of the most popular platforms for custom builders. Unlike many vintage British motorcycles, 1980s Japanese bikes are relatively inexpensive, parts are widely available, and their engines are known for reliability. Builders discovered that they could combine the classic cafe racer look with the performance and dependability of Japanese engineering. Today, it's common to see a 1980s sport bike transformed into something completely unique. Frames are modified, rear subframes shortened, modern suspension installed, LED lighting hidden with vintage styling, and custom exhaust systems built by hand. Some builders create traditional cafe racers, while others blend styles to build scramblers, rat bikes, street trackers, or even dual sport cafe racers that can handle both pavement and dirt. What makes these motorcycles special isn't just their appearance. Every custom build tells a story. Some are rescued from barns after sitting for decades. Others are forgotten project bikes given a second chance. Every dent, every weld, and every scratch becomes part of that motorcycle's history. Building one isn't simply about making a motorcycle faster or prettier, it's about creating something that reflects the builder's personality, mechanical skill, and vision. No two custom motorcycles are exactly alike, and that's what keeps the culture alive. Today, a cafe racer spirit is stronger than ever. Around the world, builders continue to take ordinary motorcycles and turn them into rolling works of art. Machines that honor the past while embracing modern engineering. Whether it's a classic British twin or a customized 1980s Japanese four-cylinder, the goal remains the same. Build a motorcycle that's fun to ride, impossible to ignore, and uniquely your own. And that's why these bikes continue to capture the imagination of riders around the world. They're more than just transportation. They're history, craftsmanship, and personal expression on two wheels. Here at Tank Slap TV, that's exactly what we're all about. Finding forgotten motorcycles, bringing them back to life, and proving that every old bike deserves another ride. All right, so this is kind of what I was thinking. Just been kind of brainstorming on this and see what I want to do. But I want to do something a little different. I want to kind of make a blend of a cafe, sport bike, Mad Max, kind of crazy dual sport type bike. I know that sounds a little weird, but hear me out. A lot of times I'll save these. This is from an old wrecked 1970s, I think it was a CT, an old Yamaha 125. The whole thing out front had been just trashed, It was in the scrap pile, but the rear hoop and the lower bar was good, so I just hacked this off, and I kept some other parts on it as well. But I love these hoop frames for building cafes and things like that. So if I play with this a little bit, I was thinking maybe I could get this in here. Now obviously I'm going to need to do some cutting and splicing. I'll bring this hoop up. Something like that. And get a nice even straight line. I think it's probably arched a little bit, but we'll tweak that around. Yeah, I like that. Build that up a little bit. Get the kind of racer line right here. And then when I make a seat for it, we'll build the seat up and we'll bring it up over the tank more to kind of make this look like it flows into the seat versus comes down and stops and then the seat starts. So bring it up around this and form the seat over top of that. I don't know, give kind of a finished look on that piece. Now I was playing with the bars too, and same CT, I had the bars. I just have that resting there. I went ahead and put them on. Now they're a little lower, but it's not a drag bar. So the angle of this, the angle of the head here kind of kicks back pretty far. So if I keep those in line with that, that might be a pretty comfortable ride. Giving you that more enduro front end with almost a sport bike rear end. All right, so where I want to start off on this is that rear hoop. I want to kind of get the shape of the bike rolling so I know what I can cut out, get rid of, how I'm going to orient it, and then I'll get into the motor and the wiring and all that stuff. But that's where I feel that I should start. Now I'm just like probably 90% of the people who are watching this. I don't have fancy jigs and mounts and all this cool stuff. I'm in a garage. So I'm going to use a vise, and I'm going to use common sense to find normal flat lines, mount it up where I can, and level it out so I can start putting levels on things and making things match. Now, I know that probably didn't make any sense because I just said a bunch of stupid things that came out of my mouth. But what I'm looking at doing is cutting all these to be the same shape and size, so when I put it on the bike and I mount it up, everything's going to be straight and level. There's ways to do that without jigs. You just got to be smart about it. Just think about it. So, for instance, what I did here is I took this vise, and this vise has the ability to rotate on 2 different axes. So, get on here with a level and level everything. Boom. I know. Boom. I'm nice and level this way. And then I take a straight edge that's on the piece that's welded. Now, from the factory, if they mess that up, well, it is what it is. But I think they made so many of these that it's probably not so bad. It's probably pretty straight. So I find these 2 points of this cross member. That should make this sit pretty straight. And then I can start working down the metal and making this nice and level all the way down these mounting points, which these are weld spots. This is what I'm going to weld onto the lower point. And then I can do the same thing up here. So I'm just trying to make everything as even, level, and straight as possible before I start mocking up to the bike. It's that simple. You guys can do this with basic tools. You just have to take a little time and energy and effort. Don't just throw stuff on and weld it and be like, oh, that looks awesome. It probably won't. Just being honest. So now we have the rear hoop all ready to rock. We got to set the suspension height. You got to remember they cut this off. Whoever did this before cut this all off, welded in some suspension, blah, 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 blah. That's garbage. I don't like it. I don't want it. I want to get the rear back up in the air so I can get a sort of a front style rake. Just a little bit, nothing crazy. So I found a 1/2-inch rod that fits directly through. Perfect mount for the shocks. And I set the ride height just simply jacking up the rear end of the bike and then leveling everything out, making sure it's nice and cranked down at the front. And now I got a nice even ride height back here. And I've stepped over it, sat on it. I'm pretty comfortable with this. And that's what I'm going for. So I'm going to go ahead and tack this tube into place and set where the rear shocks are going to be. We'll do that, and then I'll start working on reinforcing that rear structure and making these making sure the shocks are mounted in a way that it is just going to be impenetrable. Let's do it. So I got the rear shocks tacked, like I said before. What we're going to do is go ahead and gusset these in. I think I have a pretty good way of doing that. Let's try it out and see what happens. So here I made a little gusset off center on this 1.5-inch bar. And it's going to go ahead and slide over this tube and then butt right up against the original frame. Oop. That's gonna we line that up. There we go. Boom. Weld that in here, and that should give a nice solid brace. And then the shock will slide over on top of this with a bolt sticking out to tighten it down. I think that will work. So I'm going to go ahead and make the other one a while. Get that process done, and then I'll weld these into place, and we should have a pretty solid rear suspension. here's where we're looking at so far. Got that kind of tied in here to the bottom bar, bring that up to the back, tie this old hoop up into that, and at least make it look like it belongs there. And I've got some dressing up to do back here, finishing. And fortunately, I'm out of gas, so I'm using a flux core, but I can clean up the spatter. The weld's pretty decent. It kind of looks exactly like the factory welds. No, these are a little more boogery. But anyway, good dimes in there. All right, anyway, yeah, we'll strengthen this up, but I'll go ahead and I'll do the other side. Same thing. At least it gives it some sort of shape and flow, and I think once all that's painted together, and then I'm going to go ahead and take this section and box this in and close this, and that's where all the electronics are going to go. So you're going to kind of have that cafe racer open bottom, and then you're going to have this blocked off area up here around the seat. I think that'll look good. I think it would look awesome with it all open, but there's a lot of wiring that goes with this bike, so I got to get creative with that. I don't know. We'll go with that for now. Well, got these shock mounts all lined up now, I think. Let's go ahead and see if we can't mount it up. Things are flying. All right. Oh, I don't know. Up. What do you say? One. Okay, there we go. Right through that little loop there. Uh-oh. I'm down a shock. What'd I do with it? You're looking right at it, aren't you? There it is. Maybe that can't go through there. All right, let's go there. Yes, sirree. Look at that. I like it. Now we'll throw these on for now. And I'll definitely get in here and then I'll cut off the leftover bolt here. I made them kind of long. But we'll find out the nuts and the washers that we're using. I'm probably going to put like an acorn nut on there, something decorative. And then, let's go. Let's check it here. Ooh, tank mount. Don't want to lose that. There we go. Put that there. All right. Hey, not too shabby. One more thing I want to tackle, seeing if I can get a good rev out of this. I did hear it crackle and pop, but I'm not really sure I had it wired correctly. So I'm going to get into that with the wiring diagram. Let's see what we can come up with. Before I dig too much deeper into the wiring, I want to get the controls up here all mounted on some new bars. I was debating between a drag bar, which, sure, I have one around here somewhere. I have a drag bar, which is pretty flat, small angle to it, straight across. The only thing I don't like about these, for this look I'm going for, is it looks too aftermarket. It does not look like they belong. I know that might not mean a lot to some people, but I kind of think I want to do something a little less aggressive, but more aggressive. So I got a different style bar just to try out. And these are essentially still a drag bar, but very, very low rise. So it's still going to give it that aggressive look. Yeah, but I think give it a more refined finish, if that makes sense. So I'm going to do those. I'm going to swap everything over to these bars, get everything oriented where it needs to be. And then we're going to sort through some of the wiring. And before the end of this episode on this guy, I'd like to give her a good rev. All right, well, the old ignition switch have been taken apart. One up in here, little key switch, completely missing. But you can tell that's it by the way that it is. Now, if you look at the diagram, it gives you a breakdown of the switch. And it'll tell you what needs to be hooked together in the switch and how it works to make what function of that switch function. for lack of many words. Now you'll see that on here, looking at the diagram, the white and the yellow go together to give you ignition. So I'm going to simply, I have the yellow wire here hooked or unhooked from the back of the solder here, and I'm just going to tie it on loosely to this joint. And then we're going to use a test light. A test light, all it does is complete a circuit. If you've never used one of these before, I'm sure you all have. But if you never have, it just completes a circuit, ground on one side through a bulb into the positive side probe. And it'll work vice versa. So find a good ground, pretty much any metal I just got done grinding on back here. And we're going to look for power. Now I know which one is power by the diagram, but if you don't have a diagram, this is how you're going to search, and you know you have power running to it. I've got the battery hooked up, and I can just probe around and see which one gives me 12 volts. And of course it's going to be this one. White coming in is 12 volts, and then yellow out to tell the ECU and everything else to turn on. So there we go. I got those two tied together. Now I should have ignition at this point. And we can easily test that. Again, same deal I always do. Put a plug in one of the wires. I usually like to be number 1. Rest it against a good ground. If the motor's grounded properly, any of these bolts on top will do. We can go down here to the solenoid and check to see that I do have 12 volts coming from the battery, and I do. Everything's hooked up. All the fuses are okay. So if I push this start button, it should crank over. And it does. All right, excellent. Now, next thing I'm gonna look at is check for spark. Now what I'm looking for is that arc right in here. And there it is. Oh, and that's good spark. That looks real nice. Okay, cool. All right, did you see it? I believe that I have enough compression, enough spark to make this fire off of some starter fluid. Now I cranked this over a couple times before, and I did get some oil pressure built up in there. I should be looping up the top end pretty well. A little spritz of this isn't gonna hurt it. Just to see what we can do. But for sure I checked, and I was lubing up the top end. So we'll get a little of this through these carbs. A little bit, a lot. Ah! She's a runner. All right, so in this episode, we went ahead and we got the rear hoop all figured out. We got the shocks mounted up, new bars on the front. We even got her fired up. So now we know that this project is going to be finished. But before we even get started on finishing it, she needs a name. Now, I'm a man of military background. So is the future owner of this bike. We're going to put some dual sports on it. You're going to be able to ride it on the street, in the dirt. You can go out and find your own track. So I think I'm going to go ahead and name this bike Project Pathfinder. Because why not? I like that. This is a Kawasaki Pathfinder from here on out. Well, there we go. We just took something that was laying out back for scrap, gave it a little bit of new life here. Motor runs. It's going to run. It's going to run strong. We'll pull those carbs apart eventually here and take care of that. That's all going to be coming up in the second half of this episode. So tune in next time. I appreciate all you guys hanging out and watching us bring this thing from nothing to something. Got a really good concept of what we want to do here, and we're going to make this a pretty cool little bike. Until next time, remember, keep it inside the garage, not in the mud or laying down in it for a year. But whatever you do, we're not here to judge. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.